And what about, the fight question too, where you've talked about moving up to because I remember you were talking about fighting Brock, and now they're talking about DC fighting Brock at heavyweight. You're fighting Gustafsson at light heavyweight. Is there any desire to move up? Because there's a few 2-belt champions, and if you are to win this fight, I mean, he was a very tough fight the first time. Is there any desire for you to move up and fight at heavyweight as well?
Yeah, I would like to fight at heavyweight. I think fighting Daniel Cormier at heavyweight would be, I feel like now is the time to capture the heavyweight belt. I do believe that I have his number. I believe the only difference in me and him fighting at heavyweight would be he'd be physically a lot stronger than what I'm used to him being. I believe he'd probably punch a little harder. I believe I punch a lot harder. I do believe that if I want to capture the heavyweight championship, doing it against a guy like DC would be ideal.
You think you'd be able to do it?
I feel like I have his number, yeah.
Because you and I spoke one time, and I asked you about possibly moving up to heavyweight, and you said, well, somebody who's like on the smaller side.
Yeah.
And then you called out Brock Lesnar, which I thought was really funny.
Brock Lesnar's a massive, he's a huge, scary man, but I just know the payday. I used to never think about the payday. I used to like feel like I had too much pride. Like as a martial artist, we shouldn't bring up money. It's not traditional martial arts way to be and all. But at the end of the day, man, we're martial artists, but it's okay to be aware of money as well. And
it's a job.
It's a job. It really is. And Conor McGregor's done a great job of showing us all that, dude. You gotta talk a little shit. You gotta know when to put a collared shirt on. You gotta know when to do all this shit. And that's where the game is turning. So yeah, now my psychology is to be the best, but I feel like my pride towards being the best is more serious at light heavyweight. I feel like if I were to somehow come up short at heavyweight, it's like, look how small the dude is. He tried at least, and it takes a lot of courage to be 50 pounds lighter than a dude and still challenge yourself, and that's something to be said for. But lose to light heavyweight is not acceptable to me.
Right.
Did you happen to catch over the weekend the Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz fight?
I saw like memes and highlights online. I haven't seen the whole thing. I heard first round knockout, Tito Ortiz.
End of the first, yeah. It was.
I was going to say, thoughts?
I would say, look, I love Chuck. I didn't want to see him fight. No one ever wants to see a guy who's, was he 48 now? 47. I was like, he was slower, but again, I think he's 8 years since his last fight. It was sad to see because I love Liddell.
A place I would try not to be, man. Ideally, it'd be great to see something like what Matt's doing, transitioning, using your other skills to continue being successful, doing real estate, having your own gym, being able to use your voice and things like that. That's ideal. What you don't want to do is your last fight to be, you not being able to take a punch and then you for some reason being back in there. I would imagine it's a financial thing.
Like Cormier's doing it right.
What we don't want to be.
Cormier's doing it right because he's already doing broadcasting and he's good at it.
Right.
So he'll just step right into that.
Yeah, and that's kind of where you want to be. Exactly what he's doing. You can easily see him having his own gym, eventually doing commentary, broadcasting. Exactly. So that's the ideal for myself. Is to be a gym owner or just to be the trainer of a few elite athletes and give them my all, than to be past my prime and it's still in there, with the young bucks.
It's so hard, I guess, for fighters. It just seems like everyone has a couple of fights. With Ali, he fights Larry Holmes, he fights Trevor Burbank. Like these guys, it's so hard, I guess, for somebody who's in their late 30s or 40s to say I'm done.
One thing about me is I've been suspended. I've spent 3 years in suspension while in my prime, so I've been able to have that ability to ask myself and realize who am I outside of the sport. It's like,
right.
You know what I mean? It's like 3 years I've spent, like 3 out of the last 5 years I've been suspended. So I have an idea of how people will treat me when I'm not Jon Jones, UFC fighter champion anymore. I have an idea of what will happen when I don't have any sponsorships and how money should be going and flowing and how fast I'm spending it compared to how fast I make it.
Did you learn the budget in the last couple of years?
Absolutely. Fucking absolutely I did.
Sometimes it sucks when you have it sucks when you have to budget, when you're used to not having to budget and all of a sudden you have to.
I was at a point I was making over $100,000 a month in sponsorships. And when you live like that, you get used to being able to you don't even consider it blowing money. It's all in your means. And when the money's not coming in, you definitely have to look at everything differently and just be more mature and responsible. So it's a blessing and a curse, to be suspended in the middle of your career because you really get a good picture and it humbles you too. It's a beautiful thing, man.
I think part of it is the money thing with the fight that happened with Chuck and Tito. But I think part of it, like for Chuck Liddell, I think that guy just you said a good thing about your identity outside of the sport. And I'm not saying he doesn't have one. I don't know, but I I think he I believe him when he says he truly loves it.
Yep.
And I believe he loved, not only did he love, I saw his post-fight Instagram something post, and it was, come back, put your shielder on it, and this, and almost like you win some, you lose some. I got caught, and he loved every minute of it. Now he's doing the after party. I think, not that he didn't give a fuck. Obviously, he was probably devastated, but he just loved if you asked if you could do it again with the same outcome, I think he'd do it again.
Yeah.
I think he would love that. And I don't know if it's a great thing as a guy that has fighters, younger fighters that are, or getting older now that still want to do it, and it's not right for them because their reflexes are just not there.
Yeah.
They get their lights put out, and that's something that obviously never happened to you, or even happened to, besides that back fist a few times, I never really had I never got my lights put out, where there's guys that when you get your light put out, it's just that much quicker for it to go out again. You watch his last fight with Tito. You watch this fight with Chuck and Tito. Tito was stalking him. Stalking him.
Yeah, and it was a jab, really.
It was,
Wow.
it just, it was, I don't want to say it was sad because I know Chuck had a good time.
Yeah.
But for people, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think it's the high. I think it's the high that he's missing. Chuck Liddell's he's godlike in our sport. He's a big reason why I considered mixed martial arts. I was out in college in Iowa Central Community College, and I went to this townie party, and Chuck Liddell was the first UFC fight I ever saw. And I've never seen a bunch of grown men just marvel over another person like this.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized what this sport can be. And Chuck Liddell, man, he's even an old version, man, fans are fired up about Chuck. Whenever I talk about fighting Chuck, people come at me, hardcore fans come at me like, don't you ever disrespect the legend, or you respect your elders, or respect the pioneers. And Chuck, so just to be back in the scene and to wear a fresh mohawk and to have people screaming his name and the walkout and the after party, I'm sure he missed being at that level of everything. And I'm happy for him that he got to feel it one more time, because it's really a beautiful thing.
And he had a job at the UFC for a long time, and then he didn't have one once it was sold. And I wonder if that affected him at all too, because even though he wasn't fighting, he would still come into the arena and the whole place would explode when Chuck walked in. It was still something. It's not fighting, but he had some kind of an income and some kind of an attachment to the UFC. He was in charge of some type of whatever it was, fighter relation or something. And
I wonder what his relationship is now, because he's not even under the UFC banner anymore. I wonder how Dana White feels about him representing. Because he's a UFC household name, and what did he fight under now? Bellator?
It might have been Bellator.
No, that was
Oscar De La Hoya.
Oh, Oscar De La Hoya's thing, right? I'm sorry, yeah. I think Dana lets after Demetrius Johnson just left and Eddie Alvarez left, Dana goes, hey, look, more power to you if you can make money. He seems to understand that after a certain point, if you have to go and make the money, good for you, go make it.
No, but he cares. He doesn't want Chuck fighting at all because he cares for him personally
right.
as a friend. So he doesn't. And it's hard to dispute. Listen, it's a weird thing to talk about because, you hear guys saying, well, any grown man should be, that's fine. It's his choice. It's his body and it's his life. That's true. But don't you, as a guy if you care about the guy, don't you want him to be able to throw the ball around with his kid in a couple of years?
Absolutely.
You got to look at it like that. Nobody's talking about that. I heard some guys talking about it that I respect, and they're like, well, it's his life and yada yada, and every man should be okay. That's great. Now you must not give a fuck about the guy, because I've got fighters under me, and I've talked about this with you off air, Jimmy, and they want to continue to fight, and they shouldn't fight.
Right.
If you throw that water bottle at their face, it's gonna it's gonna bounce off the head before they go to reach for it. That's the problem. That's what's going on here. I seen a thing at Chuck Liddell and Tito at the weigh-in. I just saw it this morning, and it showed Tito flicked his belly a little bit. I think if it was Chuck back in the day, the second he touched his belly, smack that fucking thing. You see him do a little beep, 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 beep. Chuck's looking at him, and then afterwards Chuck, and I love Chuck, I'm not attacking him, but then he kind of looks down and he's like, oh, okay, I could be a little fat there. I don't think it registered right away that he's fucking touching his belly. I'm not, listen, I'm fucking, can I just do that to boo myself? No. I love Chuck. I'm not being a dick.
Now you notice.
You could be under something.
But these are things that I notice, and I'm like, come on, man. And I just think he loved that. And when you saw, they asked him about retiring, and he said something about, he doesn't want to think about it yet, but at least he's going to be back in the gym because he enjoyed being back. If not training for himself, he's going to be help training other people. So I think he just likes, like Rocky, just carrying the buckets. They just want to be around it.
And you also said too, John, you said that you wouldn't address him on Twitter anymore Because I guess is it that you felt like, all right, there's nothing, we're not going to fight.
Yeah, it's so funny, dude. It's because the Chuck Liddell fans actually viciously attacked me about that. Somebody wrote me, "You're such an asshole for even saying that." And I was like, "I just can't win. Fuck you."
Yeah, I mean, Chuck's a fighter; he can handle it.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that with him anymore because it's like he's Chuck Liddell, so because he's a legend, you get a response from me when you call me out. You know what I mean? You're not an up and comer. You're a fucking legend. So it's like, I'm not replying to just anybody. You're Chuck Liddell. I don't care how old you are.
Yeah, if he calls you out, you have to.
Yeah,
it's almost disrespectful to ignore him.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, motherfucker, you still knock out probably 70% of the people walking around out here. So yeah, I'm going to take you seriously when you talk about wanting to fight against me. But after seeing what just happened with him and Tito's, he's like, dude, now I'm being an asshole. Now that I see what you got left, now I'm just being an asshole by even entertaining fighting.
If you do that, yeah, because I mean, there's like a 17-year difference or 16-year difference between you guys. What do you think of the rest of the division? I mean, it's changed a lot.
It has.
It's Anthony Smith. I mean, Dominic Reyes was there obviously, but he's making a lot more noise now.
Yeah.
Still undefeated.
Yeah.
So there's some interesting prospects at light heavyweight if you do beat Gustafsson.
Yeah. Yeah. We got Anthony Smith and Dominic Reyes both coming up. It's weird when you be a fighter. My real personality, honestly, is I'm pretty humble, modest dude. But I understand that right now I'm talking in front of an interview, and I'm at work, and people want to hear the fighter side of me, right? And be extra cocky and confident and all that. And so that's what I'm going to give you guys. I'll say that I don't think either one of them are ready. I see major holes in both of their games. I think Anthony Smith may be closer to title contention, and I'd be really excited to fight him. I think that's probably who I should be fighting now as a warm up fight over Alexander Gustafsson. I just feel like he's just definitely not ready. His last fight, he got tooled on the ground by Volkan, and Volkan is a striker. To have a striker take your back and ground and pound you from the back position for that long is just like you get a wrestler like me on your back, dude. Somebody's gonna be looking for rear naked to put hooks in. Somebody's looking to really hurt you. It's he's not ready.
And Uzdemir, by the way, Matt, had the same thing happen when he fought DC. DC said that there's levels to this game, and then was it the end of the first round? Was it the early second round?
Yeah. You got to be real, man. Joe Rogan told me when Joe Rogan recently came out and was talking about when me and him smoked weed together in his hotel room, which is a true story, and. And he was absolutely right. He told me something the night I beat Stephan Bonner. He said, "Jon, I've seen many young, dynamic, athletic dudes come through here." He said, "Jon, you won't be shit." And he said it right to my face. He said, "You're not going to be shit unless you embrace what it means to be a mixed martial arts fighter." He said, "I see people get cut every year." He said, "If you don't get your jiu-jitsu down, dude, and get pride and grappling, and he's like, you're not going to make it. Yeah, do you do flashy techniques and do you have good wrestling and throws? Yeah, but you got to embrace the whole thing of what it means to be a mixed martial artist." And that's what a lot of people aren't doing, and that's what's giving me a lot of hope and faith. Even though I'm getting older, I see a lot of these light heavyweights with no ground game, and I'm just like, well, that's my path for career longevity right there. Kind of like how GSP just started taking down people and nobody could get out, and people called him boring towards the end of his career, but he was continuing to win. It's like there's a huge avenue in the light heavyweight division still that people don't have a ground game. So.
Your elbows. Nobody. Who's the kid that just fought? Kid Walker.
Yeah, Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker, who threw elbow. He's the only guy I've seen use elbows like you. I don't know if you saw that fight. It was I think his UFC debut.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, there's a few guys there in the division. But I'd rather see you move up to heavyweight after you fight Uzdemir, just because there's so many great fights at heavyweight.
Yeah, there are. They're definitely high risk, high reward fights for sure.
Now you strangled Dan Henderson in a grappling match?
We caught him with a head and arm.
A head and arm choke. I love the head and arm choke.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I love it. And not always for short and stocky guys, because I use my chest with it. When you do it, do you when you do like a Mataleon and hold your own ear or his head? Because you got those long arms. I go palm to palm.
Yeah, we go palm to palm too. Yeah, palm to palm. Get my head right next to his and just.
People don't talk about that. I mean, he fucking strangled Dan Henderson.
Which was
Dan Henderson.
Really strong bastard, by the way.
He is.
Yeah. But you know what? I shouldn't get too much credit for that. I'm a lot younger than him, and I was a little heavier than he was, too. So.
But still,
Dan Henderson's a respectable guy. It's a good one for your resume, for sure.
With your jiu-jitsu coach here, Roberto, do you have him wearing a gi at all?
You got his blue belt, yes.
Come slide up.
Yes. Now, let me see. The importance. Hold on. Come here, man. Get in here. Get right in there. Get close to this.
Let's go here.
I like to talk about this, especially with a Jedi. The gi. The importance of the gi. Don't you think it's still important, even for guys doing MMA, or no? Are you not a gi guy at all?
No, definitely. I believe I believe the gi would help you, to tighten up your game. To really know where you have to go to escape or move. Counting on the sleepiness, the luck, the
especially
scrambling.
athletic guys like John. It could
Exactly.
possibly it could be like just slowing him down for guys that are not as athletic, and that gets his game better. Do you make him wear a gi at all? Or no, I'm putting you in the hot seat.
We're pushing him, yeah. We're pushing
little
him
bit?
We always wish they can wear more, but
Yes.
once we train in camp, we just
Yeah, I
have to
understand.
focus on a game plan.
I'll tell you when I started working with Tusa was when I realized the importance was when my Vitor Belfort fight. One of the first things he taught me was what I did wrong in that armbar with Vitor Belfort.
Hold on. Did he tell you not to hold around his head, or did he tell? I don't know.
Well, he told me to actually
Tell me.
instinctually when Vitor got me on that armbar, I tried to pull out.
Yes.
Like I had my arm in hot water, I just wanted to pull it out right away, and that actually helped him out a lot.
Yeah.
What I needed to do was stack him on top of his head,
Yes.
and try to bring his hips to his head, you know what I mean, and crush him down, and then develop control that way instead of pull out. So he's been great, man. I'm actually really surprised at what I've been able to do on the ground without him.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for the future opponents to see what I'm actually capable of on the ground now, outside of just ground and pound.
I mean, I believe it was your first fight with DC. The last 10 seconds, you went for a flying triangle, if I remember correctly. Right or wrong?
Yeah,
that's
to pull
fucking
guard.
awesome.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy pulling guard. I got a lot of submissions. Our psychology and jiu-jitsu a lot of times is trying not to do things that lands us on our backs. Like
Yes.
keep a dominant position when you have a dominant position. But in situations where I do pull guard, oftentimes it's when I know my opponent is in a desperate spot and looking for that last 10-second haymaker
Yes.
type of thing, and so that's why I pull guard, because it's very hard to knock somebody out from their guard. You know what I mean? It takes
Especially you're a long body like that.
Right,
They're
yeah.
in constant danger. They're going to have to keep their arms tight and whatnot.
Yeah.
To get in trouble if they just go to swing on you.
Yeah.
And before we let you go, John, because I know you have to
shit,
you have other
man.
press. I just want
Nice line.
you said it at the first fight. The Gustafsson fight is, of course, the 29th of December. This is the rematch from, I guess, 2013 was the first one, which was, you said at the end it was a war. It was the hardest fight you ever had. It's one of the best mixed martial arts fights I've ever seen. You said you didn't train as hard as you should have. Have you trained harder for this fight?
Yeah, absolutely. The first time I fought Alexander Gustafsson, people, I was getting used to people saying things like, "Yo, he's a lot like Jon Jones, man. He just with better hands and better footwork." And everyone was just saying that he was like a Swedish version of me, And in my head, I was thinking, well, yeah, he's tall and he has he has a presence about him, but he's not me. There's only one me, and it was almost an arrogance that I had, feeling like I was a product and he was like the knockoff version of me. And what he showed me was that hard work can beat talent when talent isn't working hard, and that's such a true thing. Going into round 2, I found myself exhausted. I've been watching this fight nonstop lately because of preparing to fight him again, and I'm watching myself, and it just wasn't who I am, dude. I'm known to pick it up in championship rounds, and this fight I was exhausted going into round 2, like exhausted. So I know I wasn't doing the right things. I was in the heyday of my partying around that time in my life, and now I know what he's capable of, and I'll treat him as such. I'll treat him and train for him the way that it's supposed to be.
Well, we're happy you're back. This Gustafsson fight it's a really, really anticipated rematch, and I love you being in the UFC. So I hope that from here on out everything is good and you continue fighting for a long time, man.
Thanks, Noreen.
I love you being in studio.
Yeah,
Thanks,
it's good to
man.
be here. It's great to be
Roberto,
here.
Thanks for hanging out too, buddy. Awesome.
All right, we'll break, pee, take pictures, and be right back. Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, baby.